My name is Brian Rice. I'm a third-generation wine grower, and I've been making wine for over 2 decades here in Santa Barbara wine country. It's more than a job. It's a calling. Join me as I talk to my fellow winemakers in a series that is a candid conversation between winemakers discussing their wines, their craft, and their lives over 2 glasses of wine. Hi, I'm Brian Rice. Welcome to 2 Glasses In. I'm here with winemaker Tyler Thomas of Dierberg Star Lane Wineries. And I consider Tyler to be one of the top winemakers in California, if not in the world, in my opinion. I'm fascinated by how you got here to Santa Barbara. We're all very fortunate that you're in our neighborhood. You're elevating Bordeaux and Burgundy wines for this region because of your experience and your knowledge. Why don't you tell me about maybe your journey and how you got here, and maybe we could start out with your passion for wine, how you discovered it.
All right, I was gonna say, how far back do you want me to go? So my passion for wine really got fed when I was in college, but I know with hindsight it started with just my family background. So my dad's mother was French. So I grew up with family gatherings, especially wine was just something on the table with food. We eat our salads after the meal. Cheese is a dessert course. And so to me, growing up in St. Louis, Missouri in the Midwest, that was what was normal. And so when I got to college, I was studying plant science, botany. We drank a lot of cheap Côte d'Arones because we had no money. And I remember being so fascinated with the fact that a fruit could produce something that has savory, spicy qualities, and how cool that was. And I should say savory, spicy qualities in it, like that were enjoyable. You know, like
right, and it's like it feels good too when you're drinking it.
Yeah.
But a botanist, you probably looked at plant science and you looked at food, vegetables and things like that, and you could understand the biochemistry of food. But there's this wine thing, right, where you're almost like an alchemist. You're turning something into something totally different.
Yeah. That's
so pleasurable and so delicious. And like you said, the skins give the wine that spicy character, and it's not just grape juice anymore.
Yeah, well, exactly. And there's sort of this endless depth of questions. I heard a physicist once say it, and I'm not going to get it right, but it's like the more questions you answer, the larger the perimeter gets of what you don't know. Like there's still so many more things to pursue.
That's funny. My favorite, and I don't want to interrupt you,
Go
but
ahead.
My favorite quote that reminds me so much of the wine industry, and it's on the box, the board game of Othello. The quote on the box says, "A minute to learn, a lifetime to master."
Yeah, right.
And to me, that's wine. Like you will never master winemaking,
right.
But you can learn it really fast, and you
right.
can get the fundamentals down.
Right.
But you'll never be able to not only taste the world of wine, but you'll never be able to actually perfect it.
It's never ending. And I think that that's what attracted me to it, one, as a consumer and just appreciating it, but then as I began to think about, well, what do you want to do with all this scientific understanding you've gained? Because you can, at the end of the day, you can sit down and have 2 glasses of wine like we are, and we could go on for hours about what you could talk about with wine. And that I think people perceive me as having this very technical approach to winemaking. And I really believe that the winemakers that have the best opportunity every year, and as you know, it's only an opportunity, but I think if you're able to sort of embrace what's mysterious about wine and not have to have all the answers, be willing to operate within this space of mystery where you don't totally know what the outcome's going to be, and you're making a gut call. So I brought the 2016 Dierberg Vineyard Chardonnay for you to try.
Great. And this vineyard is located
Much closer, yeah. So this is about 12 miles as a crow flies.
Okay.
Up in Santa Maria Valley.
What's your particular philosophy on Chardonnay?
Well, it stems from what is the family's goals overall, and I think they have a really long-term, multi-generational vision. We want to be producers that lean on classically driven styles that have stood the test of time, because we want to produce something that stands the test of time.
So a real long-term vision.
Right, yeah. Jim said 250 years when I was talking to him about joining the project 6 years ago, and I sort of chuckled, and he said, "No, I'm serious."
Nobody thinks like that.
Nobody thinks like that. But anyway, it does influence the way you approach your vineyards. We're certified sustainable, and we need to continue to work to understand how can we sustain the land we're on, because we're supposed to be handing it to the great grandkids. And then I think with the wines, there are wines that have stood the test of time that, say, with Chardonnay, are driven by freshness. Not overdoing the Chardonnay in terms of flavor profile and texture, just because we can in California. I think that's what I'm talking about. When I say classicism, it's not the late 80s, 90s rise in richness and butter, but maybe even an era before that where the inspiration was definitely more European. But at the same time, we're not going to apologize about the fact that this is California.
This is really beautiful. I'm detecting butterscotch and lemon. How would you describe this Chardonnay? And this is 2016 estate-grown Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm. I'm so bad at deconstructing wine into the specific flavors.
Oh, that's okay. I mean,
I think that it's one reason I picked this vintage is that where we like this wine to be. So I think citrus. You mentioned citrus. There's that kind of fresh aromatic quality to the Chardonnay. There's something that I don't know how to describe other than saying it smells like good, fresh California Chardonnay. And then in the mouthfeel, you feel that. There's definitely a little more texture and richness that you'd expect from our area, but there's that backbone of acidity and acid.
Yeah.
And
it's really zesty and it's mouth-watering.
Yeah, and so I think that I brought it because I wanted to share something with you that we felt like this is where we want to live. Like this is where we think represents our vineyard really, really well. Santa Maria Valley, and as a result, Santa Barbara County really, really well.
You know, there's been a lot of, surveying and we've looked at soils and climates, and we've kind of pooled all of our data together as winemakers, and we've decided, this is distinctly different from 40 miles away. And so therefore we should only be planting these varieties in this climate. Yeah. And we finally matured, I think, as a wine region where in the past we were just planting everything in the same, in the same appellation, Cabernet, Chardonnay. And now we have the smarts to realize, no, you can't do that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think some of the original plantings in Santa Maria were like Pinot, then Rose of Cab, then Rose of Merlot. Right. And they just put everything out there.
They didn't know what they didn't know yet.
Yeah, and I think what's exciting is when I think of Santa Barbara County, I think it's a place for real wine lovers. That like I said earlier, we're not growing these things as a marketing ploy. It's like the climate allows for this sort of diverse set of varietal expressions that are legitimate. And you can spend a day tasting the world of wine in one small area, which is, by the way, not that far from the beach. Big plus.
Absolutely. Well, let's try this Cabernet that you produced. I've tried them many years in a row. And what vintage did you bring today?
I brought the 2015.
Oh, I think I've had that.
And I brought it though because it's the most difficult vintage.
Right, I remember it was so low yielding.
Yeah, really. There was the fruit set was so poor that I remember being on the sorting table. And one of our interns was asking me, like, should I sort this out? This is before it hit the distemmer. And she picked up a cluster that was a regular sized cluster, and it literally only had about 10 or 15 berries on it. So I was like, no, you can let that go through. Like, we need those 15
every
berries.
drop.
So we had really low yields on cab, and so we had low yields already, and then we making selections. So I bring the wine because we're actually really proud of this wine, but it's an example of we all talk about you need great sites, and you do, but sometimes you have these outlier vintages where there's just a lot of work that is put in the cellar to really do everything you can to still deliver the consistent and good quality you want to become known for. And we turned over every stone and like, how can we possibly like make and craft this blend to really be something special? And so this all took like months to do. And
it's amazing. It smells so good. I would compare this to any Cabernet in Napa blind, and I'm sure it would perform well. There's no doubt in my mind. And I would say you are the hallmark, in my opinion, of the Cabernet kingdom here, that we have this little fiefdom of cabs.
Yeah. I like that. It is a fiefdom. We do have a lot of the acreage. This vineyard is why I moved to Santa Barbara, though. But I had not spent that much time crafting Cabernet, and so the opportunity to come down here and be a part of a region that is still trying to figure out what exactly the stamp is in terms of style, but knowing that the quality had such high potential, because if you look at what makes great Bordeaux vintages great, or even great Napa vintages, and you distilled it down to two things, which one guy has done, a guy named Orly Ashenfelter, who developed a mathematical model to predict Bordeaux auction prices. And he did it, and he was kind of laughed at, like critics, like Parker, like, nah, I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't even taste the wines. But he only used 2 variables, and the only 2 variables he used were temperature and rainfall in the summer.
Really?
And people still use this guy's model, like Sotheby's still use this guy's model to forecast Bordeaux auction prices based on vintage information, and it's been shown to, for the most part, be accurate.
I've never heard of this.
And so if that's true, then that suggests that, you know, warm vintages with little rainfall
Tend
create
to be great
Cabernet,
vintages. Okay.
right? That people will demand 15 years down the road when they're buying aged versions of it.
Fascinating.
Well, when you say you need limited rainfall and warm temperatures, you are describing Happy Canyon every single year.
Right.
You're describing eastern Santa Barbara County every single year.
It's arid, dry.
And what I saw when I toured this vineyard and got introduced to the Dierberg family was an opportunity to kind of craft Cabernet in a different way, making different choices, but actually still produce something that is classic Cab, maybe above its weight.
Right, which I would say it does. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It's elegant. It's not overpowering. You know, so many people make Cabernet too big, too high in alcohol, too rich, too extracted. This is right in the middle for me between that big, heavy Cabernet and maybe a Bordelaise.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I never thought I'd have so much fun making Cab. It's way more diverse of a variety than I realized. We make probably 30 to 40 different Cabs every year, you know, to only bottle 2. And it's really fun wine to make.
You've stepped into one of the most beautiful vineyards and winery. The winery is absolutely stunning at Star Lane. I mean, it's magnificent, actually.
Yeah.
There must be a lot of collaboration between ownership and the winemaking department.
When I first came on board, we had a lot of conversations and opened up a lot of bottles of wine, mostly to get on the same page about the direction that I thought I was hearing they wanted to go and what I therefore would recommend to them about how we should approach producing the wines. So when I would say things like, hey, I think with the Cabernet, you can lean on the nature of this environment, lower water, you know, warmer temps as we discussed, and as a result you can pick earlier. So then we kind of have that back and forth, and we've continued to have that in perpetuity is the land. And so if we can figure out how to craft wine that is truly tied to the place, that you really get maybe key specific flavors in addition to just general deliciousness, that are, and those key specific flavors are tied to the place, that is something that, if it's attractive, could be sustained generation to generation. So because we have 3 different properties, we sort of divide and conquer how we do our winemaking and tasting. So we have a small winery, more so a tasting room at our Santa Rita Hills property known as Drum Canyon Vineyard. So it's 7 miles west of Buellton. It's between Buellton and Lompoc off
Right
246.
off, 101, 246, right in the middle, right?
And you can taste the whole portfolio there. So the Star Lane Cabernet and Bordeaux varietal wines and the Burgundian varietal wines under the Dierberg label are all there.
In a beautiful setting.
It's a great setting in the country, right next to our vineyard. We renovated it a couple years ago, so it's a really great. I like going out there for meetings, and
luckily we've known each other a little bit, and I've had a chance to try the Star Lane wines at Star Lane Winery, which is stunning. I mean, it's a castle with caves and state-of-the-art equipment and tanks that would make any winemaker drool.
It's true. It is it was well designed to be a winemaker's paradise.
People want to get back to nature. They want to taste the fruits and taste the vegetables and the olives and the things that we can produce out of the soils here in Santa Barbara. And I just love that part because I feel like we're doing a public service essentially to educate people about fine wine and fine food.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the more we can connect people in sort of a tangible way to the land, the better opportunity we probably have in preserving the sort of rural pastoral feel that I think is the goal of most Santa Barbara County residents. You know, and I think wine is a great avenue for that, and vineyard land as a result. So
we are on the same page, my friend.
Yeah, cheers.
I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Yeah, great to chat.
Amazing conversation. Cheers.